In a television industry already accustomed to constant upheaval, few announcements have been as shocking as CBS's decision to cancel The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. This was not a program on its deathbed. On the contrary, it was at the peak of its success, having led US late-night ratings for 9 consecutive seasons. Even after just winning the prestigious Emmy Award, Colbert's empire was still brought to an end. What stunned both the media and audiences most was the suddenness. There was no farewell plan, no psychological preparation for fans. Right on set, when the news was announced, the audience's boos were not only an expression of regret, but also proof of the invisible, yet extremely strong bond between Stephen Colbert and those who loved him. They did not just lose an entertainment program, they lost a guardian of political commentary and truth every late night. The end of The Late Show is never just about revenue numbers on a balance sheet. Behind the curtain of this sudden departure lies a political storm that Stephen Colbert, with his outspoken and uncompromising nature, had accidentally or deliberately stepped into. It all began with an old shadow. Paramount, CBS's parent company, suddenly agreed to pay a massive sum of up to $16 million to settle a lawsuit with Donald Trump. The lawsuit involved allegations of misleading editing in a 60 Minutes interview. In the public eye, this was not just a business settlement. It was a humiliating act of submission by a media giant under political pressure. Stephen Colbert, who had spent his entire career satirizing absurdities, could not remain silent. Just 3 days before the termination order was issued on live television, he directly called that $16 million payment a bribe. That was not a joke. It was a cry of outrage from a host who no longer wanted to be a puppet of corporate interests. That statement was like a knife cutting the fragile connection between Colbert and CBS leadership. Although the network immediately cited dry financial reasons to justify the cancellation, the timing, right in the middle of Paramount's merger with Skydance awaiting FCC approval, created a huge cloud of suspicion. Not only audiences, but also influential figures such as Senator Elizabeth Warren raised questions about the true motives behind the decision. Was The Late Show cancelled because it was unprofitable, or because Colbert's voice had become an irritating thorn, threatening political dealings behind the scenes? The fact that the #1 host was pushed out immediately after directly criticizing the owner created a powerful psychological shockwave. Audiences realized that in the world of mass media, when you dare to name truth, the price can sometimes be your career. If political resistance was the trigger, then the financial reality was the flammable ground CBS relied on to carry out this television execution. Leaked internal reports confirmed a harsh truth. The Late Show was facing losses of around $30 to $40 million per year. In the streaming era and short-form content age, late-night television is undergoing a severe identity crisis. Audiences no longer sit in front of the TV at 11:30 p.m. to watch a full live broadcast. They watch clips on YouTube the next morning or scroll through viral segments on TikTok. The traditional business model, where advertising revenue depends entirely on fixed broadcast time slots, is being seriously eroded. Brands are no longer willing to pay massive sums for a program whose traditional audience is aging and shrinking. What frustrates industry insiders is not the difficulty of the business itself, but the network's attitude. In a normal business world, a valuable asset like Stephen Colbert would be invited to the negotiating table to discuss cost-cutting measures, format adjustments, or restructuring the operational model to adapt to the new era. However, CBS did not give Colbert that opportunity. The decision to cancel the show was made with a cold, decisive speed, almost like a cleanup operation rather than a business negotiation. For Colbert, this was a bitter betrayal. He had turned the program into a fortress of civility and humor, delivering achievements no other host had matched in decades. Yet in the eyes of executives, all that symbolic value and loyalty became meaningless compared to red numbers on financial statements. This is not only the end of a television show, but also a symbol showing that the power of employees, hosts, has been completely stripped away by the wallet holders, networks, those willing to sacrifice cultural legacy just to improve quarterly reports. To understand why Stephen Colbert connects so deeply with audiences, and why his departure feels like losing a friend, we must look back into his past, into the scars he has carried throughout his life. Colbert was not a comedian raised in comfort and joy. He was a man shaped by profound pain. At age 10, his life was split in two by a horrific plane crash that took his father and two older brothers, whom he deeply admired. It was a deep wound, such a massive loss that it shaped his entire personality and worldview. In that vast void of loss, comedy emerged as a survival mechanism. He learned to use humor not to deny pain, but to confront it, to mock the absurdity of death and the fragility of life. His journey was a continuous search for meaning among fragments. There were periods when he fell into a deep crisis of faith, questioning everything he had been taught. But ultimately, he found solace in a steadfast Catholic faith combined with comedic sensitivity. Before becoming the nation's host, Colbert honed his craft in the harsh improvisational theater stages of Chicago, where he learned to listen to the audience's rhythm. He later became a legendary satirical correspondent on The Daily Show and created a controversial yet brilliant persona on The Colbert Report. Every experience, from his most chaotic roles to his most difficult nights, prepared him for the powerful voice he would bring to The Late Show. When Colbert interviews a guest about grief, he is not acting as a host extracting a story. He is a sympathetic person sharing the burden. Viewers feel it. They see in his eyes the understanding of someone who has walked through the longest darkness. Because he is built from tragedy, Colbert's humor is never meaningless. It is the laughter of someone who understands the value of pain, and therefore it becomes sacred and full of life. When Stephen Colbert took over The Late Show from the legendary David Letterman in 2015, he experienced a difficult start. In its early years, the show struggled to find its identity, trying to balance the sharp political satire that audiences loved from The Colbert Report with the lighter traditional humor of late-night television. But from 2016 onward, a period when American politics became deeply divided, Colbert found his true voice. He stopped trying to please everyone and began delivering direct, sharp, and sometimes openly angry monologues. These speeches were not just entertainment. They became moral essays in which he challenged falsehoods and defended truth. Colbert's greatest legacy is redefining the art of interviewing. He does not ask questions merely to extract information. He asks to reach the human soul. Whether speaking with Joe Biden about the pain of losing family members or discussing faith in depth with pop stars like Dua Lipa, he transformed the stage into a space of genuine connection. He proved that a late-night host can sharply criticize a president at 11:05 p.m. and then lead a heartfelt conversation about hope and redemption moments later. His achievements are not limited to critical acclaim. Colbert became the first artist to help CBS surpass its competitors in key demographic groups for decades. He proved that audiences are not shallow, they crave thoughtful perspectives, and they want both laughter and reflection about reality. He left behind not only viral video clips, but also a new standard of professionalism. The Late Show under Colbert became a kind of second evening news broadcast for millions, a place where humor and integrity coexist. It is the legacy of a man who used intellect as a weapon to protect human values in an age of chaos. In the harsh world of television, where ratings competition often pits hosts against each other, the final weeks of The Late Show created a deeply emotional scene. Stephen Colbert's departure was not seen as the failure of a show, but as the loss of a pillar in late-night culture. The solidarity shown by fellow hosts was the clearest proof of Colbert's stature. Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, and John Oliver, people who normally compete for audience share every night, appeared together in a quiet but meaningful show of support. They did not come as rivals, but as colleagues standing on the same side to honor a senior figure who elevated the entire field. The most emotional moment was the return of David Letterman, Colbert's legendary predecessor. Standing on the same stage he once hosted, Letterman openly expressed his anger at CBS's handling of the situation. Speaking without a script, he said, "They don't understand what they have." His words confirmed that CBS did not lose a legend due to performance, but due to its own short-sightedness. The appearance of former President Barack Obama in Colbert's final episodes further emphasized his cultural significance. Beyond formal interviews, Obama shared personal and intimate moments with Colbert and even jokingly hinted at a possible political future for him. It was one of the highest forms of tribute. Colbert had not only interviewed political figures, he had become part of the nation's conversation. These farewells were not only for a show, but for a man who turned a talk show into a forum where kindness and intelligence were still valued. In May 2026, the Late Show stage became a place of tribute. Each episode of the final week was no longer a traditional comedy show, but a farewell gathering filled with A-list guests who had worked with Colbert and shared unforgettable moments with him. From Tom Hanks's humor, to Steven Spielberg's depth, to Jon Stewart's heartfelt reflections, everything came together to close a golden era of late-night television. Although CBS ended the show in a way no one wished for, Stephen Colbert left on the terms of a winner. He did not let bitterness define his final chapter. Instead, he moved forward toward a long-anticipated project, The Lord of the Rings. This was not an arbitrary shift. With a deep passion for J.R.R. Tolkien's world, Colbert had spent 2 years in close discussions with director Peter Jackson. He is not just a fan, but someone with deep knowledge of the mythology. The project he is developing with his son promises to bring a poetic, empathetic, and intelligent perspective, qualities that define Colbert, into a new artistic realm of cinema. Stephen Colbert did not leave The Late Show because he had reached the end of his career, but because he had become too valuable for a system that no longer had space for honest and sharp voices like his. He departs with the absolute respect of his peers, the admiration of millions of viewers, and most importantly, the peace of someone who spoke the truth despite the consequences. One question still lingers in the public mind. Did CBS truly cut costs, or did they unintentionally lose the soul of late television? Time will tell, but one thing is certain. Stephen Colbert's story does not end here. He is simply closing one chapter to begin another, where he no longer needs to fight broadcasters, only continue writing his own legends. Does the story of Stephen Colbert's farewell make you reflect on the trade-off between financial profit and professional integrity? And do you believe an artist like him will succeed in a completely new field such as filmmaking?